streaming,
"You
guys.
gonna sell it?" I said, "Yeah." "You know what you want for it?" I said, $1.
That's what I'm worried
But you
about.
got to sign a bill of sale. He said, "Okay." So he signed a bill of sale, gave me $1. He said, "No training took your butt." So I said, "I signed this and have documentation for that." He said, "What's the gun used to thing for?" I said, "Don't know, because he didn't ask us or something."
Don't know, don't care.
Yeah, and I said, "Don't care." I said, he said, "Well, did you get the soil? Did you get environmental training?" "Did the soil?" I said, "No, I got somebody better than the environmental company." I said, "Who's the absolute expert on soil and stuff?" This is Margaret County City University. They did soil analysis for
They probably did it for free. It's
$8. $8.
$8. Probably the best $8 you've ever spent.
$8 per bucket.
Okay, I've got it on, just so y'all know.
Again, I said, I have documentation, gave it to him, got signed that. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We do
Well,
not-
it's about a minute till, I just wanted to make sure I
we
was
can't
gonna have
talk,
any
'cause
trouble
we
getting
do, we
it.
do not have a quorum. If nobody objects, I'd like to wait a certain period of time to see if somebody else shows up, so we have a quorum.
I just texted Willie.
Is he coming?
I don't know.
I think
Let's see if
Willie
he
told me he's gonna
answers.
be out of town. I talked to him Monday and yesterday, no, we talked to him Friday. I think he said he was gonna be out of town. But I saw Ford this morning, he's in town, so I hope he's gonna come. Let's give it 10 minutes. Is that okay with y'all? Because I'd like to have this meeting, because we got some stuff we need to get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got 2 things that we got to get done, and I'd like to get it done tonight. But that was the real room yesterday. Lucia said, "How you gonna do that?" I said, "Man, I'm winning it the whole way." Got a big act on him. He said, "That was pretty clever." He said, "We should have let you do that." I said, "I know, but that's pretty quick." That's on, pick
Yes,
up the
I
guy.
just wanted to know.
Good test tomorrow.
Mr.
Yes.
I'm not gonna try. I'm terrible with pronouncing names. I'm terrible. Please come, we get this done tonight. Hey, before everybody gets here, Heather,
Yeah.
I'm gonna propose we move our next month's meeting date up 1 week from the 8th to the 15th. Do you have any objection? And the reason I said that, 2 people told me they probably can't, well, one person told me they wouldn't be here then, and the other one told me they probably would not be here, and I'm not gonna be here. I'm gonna be at the beach that week.
Right.
I looked on the calendar, it's from the 15th to August the 12th, when the next meeting is exactly 4 weeks. So we'll still have a 4-week interval
Right.
between July and August.
Yeah,
if we do that.
I think I'm good.
Okay. Are you gonna be here, you gonna be here that week?
I should be.
I think we'll try to do that, maybe that'll.
Make double
that'll
check.
make us have a quorum a little easier. Cause if I'm not here, you know who has to preside over the meeting?
I do.
I figured you're not gonna do that. I'm sorry we're having to wait, but I want to get this meeting in tonight, if at all possible.
That's okay, we appreciate that.
If we have to wait. a
Joyce
minute,
said
I-
she might be late. Let me text
I'm
Joyce.
hoping at least if one more shows up, we have a quorum, then we can proceed.
Just Ford, anybody, you saw this morning.
I saw Ford this morning, he said he was in town, I didn't ask him if he's coming tonight, but he said he's in town, so I'm assuming he'll be here. He comes in late sometimes. He's working late. Here he comes. Here comes our quorum. All right, everybody got your speaker on?
They should be on this.
John, you got your speaker on? Okay, it's 6:03, and we have a quorum for our meeting tonight, Tuesday, June the 10th, for the City of Clinton Planning Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from the May 13th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting. Did everybody get a copy of those minutes and have a chance to review them?
Move the approval.
Okay.
I have a,
Any changes? Okay.
yes, I'm sorry.
ahead.
I am that person. It says, let me find it. Under public hearings,
Okay.
that section, it says Miss Kelly Barnes, who spoke against the rezoning of North Adair Street, she did not speak against. She,
And I listened to the audio again.
yeah, she is the owner of the property.
So just put in there, she was for the rezoning of the property, correct?
Well, I don't remember exactly what she said,
I'll double check
but,
the audio and make sure it's based
Okay.
on exactly
Okay.
what she said. Thank you so
Mhm.
much.
Okay.
She's the property owner, right?
Yes, one of the property owners, yeah. Anything else? Okay, did I hear a motion to accept the minutes, other than that one change, to accept the minutes as written?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, the next order of business is a public hearing for rezoning and text amendments. And I would like to call a public hearing to commence now. To hear the first business under that will be the rezoning of 101 Poplar Street, tax map number 901-37-09-025. And we have a recommendation from city on that matter.
Yes, sir. This is the property at 101 Poplar Street there in the Mill Village. The request is to maintain the property as it has been utilized as a convenience store known as the Home Store. This is a picture of the site itself. Currently, the property is zoned R2, which only allows for single-family residential duplexes as well as some public uses, but does not allow for commercial uses. Even though this property has been utilized for commercial use for some time, the current zoning is not in compliance with that. And so the request is to zone the property to an office and professional designation so they can continue operation as they have been.
Okay. I know that property. I've known it for some time. That property has been a commercial enterprise for as far back as I can remember, and I go back to 1974. Do you go back further than that?
I'm a Johnny come lately. I've only been here for 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has been
And it's
commercial
it's
that
always
time
been
period.
commercial. It's never been residential to my knowledge, so it makes sense that to request to get it to commercial. Now, I had one speaker sign up for the public hearing, Mr. Patel, but you're the property owner, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have to sign up to speak. You get to speak anyway, so please come up as the property owner.
Actually, thank
Okay,
you for giving
yeah.
the opportunity. but
Okay?
My wife is the owner. I am a manager and
Okay.
I'm running that operation since
Yeah.
15 years.
Okay?
Yeah. So I don't have clear idea about that. So I just I want to build another building next to that
Right. Okay.
for another business purchase purpose, which is going to be retail business.
It's now currently zoned R2, and what you're requesting it to be zoned, what's the zoning,
Office and
site? Office and commercial and office, which is what the property's been used for as long as I can remember, so I don't see any problem with it. Does
Which-
anybody else see any
it
questions or
still
comments?
allows residential if someone wanted, right,
That's
to
correct.
eventually revert
Yes.
to, yes.
But I will say that, weren't there some gas pumps on that property at one time?
Yes.
If there were gas pumps on that property, nobody's gonna be able to build anything residential on there unless they're gonna spend a lot of money, because it would be a site that
Right.
would have to be cleaned up under DHEC regulations, and you're not gonna wanna do that.
Right.
It would be better not to have it residential. If I owned the property, I would not want it residential.
I'm just saying if
Yeah.
someone wanted to make it residential, since the neighborhood is residential, I'm fine with it being commercial
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and remaining
Yeah.
commercial.
But my point is.
I just think because it could revert to residential, that is a positive, because then
Yeah.
it would fit in the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about the gas tanks.
It would
I'm
be,
just-
except for the gas tanks underground, and that would make it cost prohibitive to most people to do that. It would
Right.
be better if it were commercial, so I agree with it being changed to commercial.
I make a motion to change this to commercial.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, all in favor, okay, it passes. We will recommend that that be rezoned.
Can
To-
I ask one question?
Yeah,
So as you say, like, is there possible chances we can do gas station over there in the future?
yeah, if it's on what we are recommending, then a gas station would be allowed, is that correct, Phil?
I'll have to go back and look through the office and professional. I cannot remember if that is a specific use identified in there. But I can get with Mr. Sheldon into that.
If you give me just a minute, I'll look, because I got my book with me. I think it is. And I wouldn't have,
There used to be a gas tank in ground, but right now it has been removed since 12 years.
now we want to rezone it office and professional, is that what they're asking for? Okay, office and
It's
professional.
section 4.8.
4.8.
It does not specifically say gas. It says general retail business services. I don't know whether that's one that would fall under the, if you don't have permission, if it's not listed as you can do that, that means you can't. I'm not sure.
I think that would be right. No, it says prohibited uses, gas station. So if it was on that, you could not put a gas station there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I do see that now.
Yeah. Mobile homes, auto repair, gas stations, sexually oriented businesses, or any other use not listed as permitted. So it does say that.
So what would it have to be, light industrial?
It would have to be something, and I don't have a problem zoning it to allow it to be a
Yeah.
gas station. It just has to be zoned differently.
I think the home store provides vital service to the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And they should be able to run their business and make a living there. It's been there for at least 50 years
If
on both sides of the street.
if they did want to do a gas station there, what would it need to be zoned to allow that? I guess that's our
C3 would be
question.
A better fit for that type of use.
Which one?
C3.
C3, yeah.
That's your general commercial.
I would not have a problem with C3 on this property.
Well,
Does
we would
anybody?
have to have wouldn't we have to have a public hearing with it being that?
Yes.
And he would have to request that.
He'd have to request that.
Or you could make a recommendation to city council that you are okay with office and professional and C2, whichever they prefer.
Okay, I'm okay with
Let's
that.
do that.
Yeah,
Y'all-
I'm fine
y'all
with
too?
that.
Either one, and that way it would allow you to put a gas station there if you want to, because I know in the past there has been a gas station there.
And then that would give the applicant time to go back and say, would we prefer the C2 versus the office and professional?
Before council, because council has to have, a first reading, second reading, and do it. They could do that before they present it to council. I would be okay either way.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody in agreement with that? Everybody vote that? Okay.
Yes, so
Okay.
do we need to make a new motion?
Yeah, just to be technical, let's make a motion that we would also recommend to C3 if that's what the property owner
We
wants.
say C3, C2, which one did we?
C3.
C3,
that's right.
okay. Make a motion.
I
C3.
would like to make a motion that we will accept it as O and P or C2.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
C3.
Aye.
We're done, okay.
C3, sorry,
C3, yeah.
C3, my bad.
Send it to council, C3 or office or professional, either one, I think C3 would be more applicable. If you did want to put a gas station there, you could. I don't have a problem with that because one has been there before. Okay, the next item is the RS-3 ordinance. Do we need to do anything else with that? Council had a first reading on that.
Yes, sir. You need to hold a public hearing if there's anyone that would like to speak on that.
Okay.
And you need to make a recommendation to city council.
Okay, we're still in our public hearing, so if anybody would like to make any comments about the request for the RS-3 ordinance that we talked about at our last meeting, they can speak now. Would anybody like to speak to that? Hearing none, I would say we have satisfied that requirement, and council had first reading at their last meeting on that, and they've got scheduled to have second reading at their next regular council meeting next month in July, okay? I'd like to declare the public portion of our meeting closed, and we move to the next order of business, which is the development review for the Dutton Track the site plan and conceptual approval, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request for conceptual site plan approval for the project that we looked at last month as far as annexation and rezoning. On your screens is the conceptual site plan. We have the information there in your packet identifying what they are requesting. It's around 93 lots on this site plan. They're wanting to get an approval, at least at a conceptual level, so that they feel comfortable in moving forward with doing the design plans and the engineering work that you'll be looking at a preliminary review later in the future. As a part of this, they are requesting to cluster within the development there, within that table there, and also within your packet, identify some of the development requirements that you're able to vary from a typical R2 to a cluster, and that shows you the minimum requirements that they would be able to go to, whether it be a setback requirement, a lot width requirement, and those type of things. As you can see, there's another column that has the proposed values on 4 of those, at least 4 of those. They are providing more than the minimum that would be allowed under your cluster provision. They meet the same requirement for rear setbacks as far as the minimum allowed, and they're actually providing more open space than the 25% included within the requirements of the cluster provisions.
Okay.
So that's really what I like to point out to you. Additionally, this development would tie into the Clinton Rec Center on the western side. Here's on it look like it'd be on the northern face of this site, but basically where that pond is and the area to that property line adjoins the city rec complex. So there's a lot of open space that they are providing with this development, and you can see the areas there that aren't identified as individual lots. So the developers here, they'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. But that's the information we have for you.
Okay. Well, I just sent out if anybody had any questions to ask them, and I did have a question, and I've got the answer for it, and I was just reading through it, and I think that did answer my question, what would be the benefit to the city. It listed the benefits that were there. And we got two pictures where I think one shows the pond still in place and one shows some lots over the pond. That's not the plan we're looking at, right?
Yes, I asked Mr. Felt to provide a just basic drawing. Like if they were not to get approved for the cluster provision for the site, what would be the options for the site itself? And they provided you with an example, nothing that they are planning to build to. It's not an alternative plan, it's just kind of to show you as an illustration what could go on that property if the cluster provision was not provided. And as you can see, every bit of that the site is either in a lot that would be fee simple and sold to someone, or retained as the homeowner association, whether it be the roads or some other kind of spacing. And the majority of it would be utilized for individual home sites.
Okay. Now, both of these plans have the same total number of lots, correct?
That's correct.
The cluster has the same total as the other?
So the cluster has slightly one less, it's 92.
Okay.
The traditional R2 shows 93 lots. So
Okay.
there's one more.
So it's actually smaller.
Correct.
It can't be bigger, but it can be smaller, so that complies with the rule, okay. And the pond, I don't think you can do anything with the pond anyway, because the pond would be considered wetland, and that comes under a whole
Yeah,
different
unfortunately,
thing.
with the traditional layout,
Yeah.
we would just have a lot of stormwater easements going
Yeah,
through private
yeah.
owners' properties and things
And
like
that wouldn't be suitable for that. It's more suitable, the first plan showing the pond still intact as a recreational area, so I
Yeah,
think it
Phil, and I
did.
appreciate the detail that you went into there and
Yeah.
for putting that table together. I don't know if you did that or if we did that, but
Yeah.
that's helpful to see. Because that's kind of how I wanted to start, is just to say, we
Yeah.
love this piece of property and we love the history behind it and we love the Clinton community and we want to be here. And what we think is, open space is vital to a community. It gives people places to gather, exercise, enjoy, especially being that that part of the property faces the city rec facility. So we love that component to cluster or open space developments, as they're called in other places. So what we did is we took that cluster provision in the city ordinance and tried to build from there. And what we hope we've shown is that we're not trying to do the bare minimum here. We're trying to go above and beyond and have more open space than we need, a larger lot than we need, less dense than we could be, so that we do maximize the amount of open space that we can have for the community.
Okay. Generally, I'm always leery of cluster because that means smaller, but y'all didn't go to the minimum size. I noticed most of the lots are pretty close to R2 size. Some of them
Yes.
within 300 square feet of R2. So it shows me y'all tried to do it, but in a way that was more beneficial and more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, more pleasing to look at.
Yes.
The way you did it, and leaving the pond intact, I think is a plus too for the recreation. So I think maybe a cluster would be appropriate here. The only thing on this drawing that gives me any pause at all, there's only one road coming in and out.
Sure.
And 92 is kind of at the, if it was more than that, I would say you needed two, but I don't know, that's kind of close. What do y'all think about having one point of entrance and exit? And of course, all these roads are built to spec, so they're wide enough to accommodate emergency vehicles, I'm
Yes.
guessing. Okay. What do y'all think about that?
Well, two would be ideal. I can go with one. I think eventually, if they were to sell every site there and build on it,
Yeah.
DOT would have to come in and add a light at some point, maybe even widen the road some, because that is a 2-lane road. But I'm okay with the one entrance in and out,
Okay.
as long as it's wide enough to for
Accommodate all
access.
like ambulances, fire trucks, police
Yeah.
trucks, as long as they got the right
And that's
radius
a
to
great
get in
point to
there.
bring
Yeah.
up, and
Yeah.
ultimately, DOT is going to have the final say anyway. We just
Yeah.
don't know how many lots to tell DOT we're building.
Yeah.
So, in other places, that number is typically 100, and so, not abnormal to have one entrance and exit, but obviously, we're at the mercy of what DOT determines we do
Yeah.
there. So.
It looks like you got enough radius there to accommodate fire trucks, because that's the biggest thing. You'll have to get in and out of there, and DOT will look at that. But, just on the face of it, it looks acceptable to me.
Yeah, that first right turn is the tough one, but yeah, I'm good with it.
What's happening between 24 and 25?
Open space for access to.
Is that the,
That would be the,
top right corner of the
It
subdivision?
would be right
sir?
here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
That's not sure.
We wouldn't be able to fit a lot in there.
specifically, is the question just would that remain open, or is that?
I'm just wondering what's happening.
Yeah, that would be green space.
It looks like it's not deep enough to meet the standards,
Yeah, so what we've
yeah.
got along the back is an access easement for the cell tower. So we've got to have enough room for a vehicle to get through that way. And if DOT determines that we do need to have a secondary emergency only access point, that could potentially be an opportunity to grant that way without impacting the layout too much. But ultimately, that area is just not deep enough to accommodate a lot that would, allow for a buildable lot.
It doesn't accommodate the depth, so that makes sense to leave that like that, yeah.
One other observation, as I was eating my bagel and yogurt this morning, I'm watching the news, and they were doing a revisiting the fires in California and Hawaii. We've got a 2.5-foot setback. What does that do to the impact of fire and our capability to fight fires between one house and another?
Sure, great question. I think we show a 5-foot setback here. Cluster allows for 2.5, but we're showing a 5. And I don't want to speak to the Clinton Fire Department's ability to fight a fire, but not uncommon to have a 5-foot setback based upon past projects that we've worked on. Your access is going to be from the front anyway. And if you think about 5 foot on either side, you've really got 10 feet between buildings. So I don't think that would hinder the fire department's ability to fight a
I
fire.
had no idea. I never had a response from the fire department, what they would think. But
As long as there's 10-foot separation between structures, they're okay with that.
Okay?
And being that this location is next door to one of the city's largest facilities, I think the city will be in good shape to be able to protect this area as well as others inside the city limits.
And the city will tell them where they have to put fire hydrants in there. That's something the city would design and tell them where they need to put it in there, yeah.
Which brings us to another subject of infrastructure. You know, we don't approve infrastructure. Is that something we need to consider?
You will at the preliminary stage when they come back. If you approve tonight's site plan, they'll begin working on the infrastructure, the engineering for the site, and then they'll provide you those plans at the preliminary approval stage.
So they will bring us plans for the infrastructure at that point,
Absolutely,
okay.
yes, sir. And you'll get recommendations from fire, police, everyone's providing service to this
Yeah,
location.
water, sewer, everything at that time, yeah. If they can provide all that in there. That's a question I've always had, and I've never been clear about that, so that makes me feel better that we're gonna get a chance to look at that. Because that's something that I'm gonna discuss a little later, but that's something council has let me know they want to know, that we have looked at that and given the approval for that. Or at least ask about it so they'll know what they're being asked to approve. I like your answers to the questions. I think it addressed my concerns, and I like your answers that you gave.
Well, I appreciate that.
We do have approved capacity requests for sewer and water from the city already.
You do, okay. Okay. Any other questions?
If we were to approve this, are we approving it as a cluster subdivision, or are we approving it as proposed?
Technically as a cluster, because that's what they're asking for,
They
correct?
also tell me we're gonna, but the setback's gonna be 5 feet instead of 2.5 feet, so what are we
Yeah,
actually voting on?
Well, I mean, I can speak for our team and tell you that we are not going to stray from this plan unless fire or utilities come back and say you can't have a fire hydrant here or something like that. This is our intention. This was submitted with the intention of getting your approval so that we can start design work and start spending the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it's going to cost to get to that point. So
I think
we
before,
don't
yeah, I'm
want
sorry.
to change this if we can absolutely help it.
Yeah. To answer your question, what we should do is make a motion that we accept this plan as presented to us. That way they couldn't come back and say, okay, now we're going to make it, because it's a cluster, we're going to do it smaller. This is what they're wanting to do, and this is what we're approving. I think everybody's in agreement with that.
That's correct. And just if I may illustrate a little bit more, if they were to come back and say, hey, we needed the 2.5-foot side setback, they would then have to come back to you because you've approved it at 5.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that answers his question. Yeah, he doesn't want to make sure the rules don't change down the road, that what we're approving is what we're approving, and I like that, okay?
I agree with that.
That's a good point, though, good point. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the plan as presented to us?
As presented.
Okay, as presented.
I
Do I hear a
second it.
Second, okay, we have a motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Heather, you can come back now. Okay,
Did we have a quorum when we voted?
we did, we got 4, so that's a quorum. Well,
She didn't
if
vote.
if you have a quorum.
I asked that.
If you have a quorum, you just have to have a majority vote. But basically, her vote would have been she abstained. We all voted yes, so it's 3 yes, 1 abstention is the way the vote should be recorded. Okay, so it
Trying
passed.
to dot the i's and cross the t's.
Yeah. Well, we got to do it right,
that's right.
and that's important to do it right. So yeah. But make sure you record that as her vote was abstained because she has a conflict of interest, and the other 3 voted yes. So we're there. Okay. Any other discussion items from the city?
I have one item. There is today's the deadline for your next planning commission meeting. One thing that's being that's been mentioned to me is an individual is interested in making an amendment to our zoning ordinance language, specifically to the RMH zoning district, which allows for manufactured homes. There's a requirement within that section that says that pre-owned manufactured homes being placed onto a parcel within the city shall be less than 5 years old. So any manufactured home that's brought into the city has to be at least 5 years old or younger.
Right.
They are interested in amending that to either remove the 5-year requirement or extend the 5-year requirement to maybe 10 or 15 or 20 years. Um, Before I let them know to go ahead and move forward, do you have any concerns with that prior to, that I can share with them?
I do. I would not support changing that. I think that's the whole point that was put in there, is to keep older homes from being brought into the city, because that's always been a problem in the past, so I would not be in favor of making it less than 5 years. Anybody else have?
I would like to hear reasons why they would want to extend it. So I am open to discussion, probably leaning more against it, but I will definitely listen to an argument for it.
Nothing wrong with them asking.
Right, they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
the right to request.
I think they have the right to ask.
That's correct.
But one thing I forgot to mention earlier, I would like to propose that we move our next meeting date up 1 week from July 8th to July 15th. And I looked on the calendar, because we're going to have several people that are not going to be able to be at that meeting on the 8th, and I'd really like everybody to be here if it's possible. That still leaves us exactly 4 weeks from the July 15th date to the next date of our meeting to August the 12th. That'll leave a 4-week period. But is there any problem with changing that date from moving it up 1 week?
You want to go to the 15th, is that what you
Yeah,
said?
15th, yeah.
Those both would be the second Tuesdays, is that correct?
That would actually be the third Tuesday, I think. I don't have a calendar in front of me,
I'm
but
sorry, yes, that's correct. We meet on the second Tuesday.
yeah.
Your Board of Zoning Appeals meets on the third Tuesday. So if we had an item come up, we would have to either shift your meeting to another date, or we would have like one at 6 and one at 6:30. They've only had 2 meetings the entire year, so
What if we did it?
there may not be a
Yeah.
conflict.
Is that 15th, that's a Tuesday, correct?
Yes.
What if we did it on Monday, the 14th? Would that work? That way you wouldn't have a conflict between the two meetings.
Yeah, I don't believe we have any conflicts on the,
Is anybody opposed to changing our meeting from the 8th to the 14th, which will be a Monday night instead of a Tuesday night? It'll be a little deviation, but I think we'll have more people here if we have it on Monday night than if we have it the previous Tuesday night on the 8th. Any problems with that? Okay, can we do that? Change it to the 14th? That way we won't conflict with the other meeting. And that's going to be rough on y'all having 2 meetings on one night. That's going to get confused. So it'd be better if we did it on a different night.
so your motion is to move it to July 14th.
Right.
Okay.
Anybody opposed to that? I guess do we have to vote on that? Just anybody opposed? Okay. Okay, let's do that, the 14th. I can put that the 14th. Okay. All right. But yeah, as far as them bringing that request, there's nothing wrong with them bringing the request. But I remember there was a lot of discussion about that in years past about mobile homes, and that's when they decided not to allow mobile homes back in the city, but to allow manufactured homes, but they had to be 5 years or newer, so.
I think there's a big difference, and I'm kind of like Heather. I'm willing to listen to anything, but I think there's a big difference in a home that's 5 years old and one that's 10 years old.
I think so too, yeah. And it's not good. They
No.
age quickly.
No,
so.
they do. Once
Yeah,
they
yeah.
have a very small shelf life.
Yeah. But anyway, we would be glad to hear them, okay?
I'll let them know, thank you.
Okay, and the next person, any planning director reports or recommendations? Do you have anything else for us, Phil?
No, sir.
That's it, okay. And the planning chairperson's reports or recommendations, I do have some. I've had a discussion with a couple of council members, and they would like to see us do more upfront in vetting the specifically the subdivision requests, that we get more information up front. And I know we've got stuff in our subdivision that requires certain things. And I've got a concern about one in particular, the engineering report that's done on infrastructure on roads, all public streets, and I mean roads and curbing within the subdivision. I'm not sure I'm not sure that's being done. And the reason I say that, I've asked to see the engineering report on a specific development, and they have not been able to produce one, so I'm wondering if it was actually done. That's very important that it gets done, because at some point in all subdivisions, they're going to ask the city to take over the maintenance of their roads. And if their roads are built and inspected by an engineer and passed, then that's a good thing. If they're not, and they're not built correctly, the city could have a lot of problem with taking over the maintenance of them down the road, and it could be a huge expense and liability to the city if that part of the phase is not done. You know, it's not our responsibility to build the roads, but it is our responsibility to see that we vetted that and make sure that that's done. That's very important. In this particular case, I don't see how the city could take over the roads under current conditions because there is no engineering report that I've seen, and there's obviously a problem there.
So Robbie, do you think per the ordinances that we could ask for updates? And also per the ordinances, the city can choose with each of these subdivisions, the city can choose not to accept the roads and not to take the roads in their possession.
Well, they could, and that's a good point. But when we approve a subdivision and they build a subdivision, that's going to be done 2 or 3 years down the road. Probably none of us are going to be here then. They're going to be, our replacements will be here. And even the people at the city, they may not be there, so they don't know what was promised and what was not. So they may decide, yeah, we always accept the roads, we can accept them, not knowing what was done
But
before.
the ordinances, I mean, I think we
Yeah.
need reports. I totally
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
We need reports. These inspections need to be taking place and the ordinances need to be adhered to.
Yeah.
My point is that if we can get reports, then that ensures that it's happening,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And there are, several opportunities for the city to continue inspecting and to continue asking for improvements on the roads per the ordinances here. And also there is a 3-year warranty after the subdivision is completed, of which time the city can go back once again to the developer and they can in the end say, we aren't going to take over these roads. We aren't going to pave them in however many years.
And I agree with what you're saying 100%. What I would like to see is to have a procedure set in place so we never get to that point. I'd like to fix it before it goes bad rather than try to fix it after it goes bad. Because before it goes bad, it's real simple to fix. You just do it right the first time. After it's gone bad, and from a developer standpoint, building roads is very expensive. It's more expensive than it was even 2 or 3 years ago. And if you got serious problems with your roads because they weren't constructed to DOT standards as required, then you're going to spend a lot of money going back and fixing that. I'm saying let's make our procedures so we don't get to that point.
Yeah, I think
that
the
helps.
procedures are here. I think they
Yeah.
just need to be, we need to make sure they're being enforced.
That protects the city, that protects the developer, and it protects future homeowners knowing they're getting a subdivision, that the roads were done right. Because if you do them right, roads and subdivisions are going to last a long time.
Right.
Because they're not going to get heavy traffic, they're getting automobile traffic. And they're not it's not high-speed traffic, hopefully. And like the one we looked at tonight, nobody's going to be racing through that subdivision. There's nowhere to do that. So if you do it right the first time, then that solves the problem. But I'm just not convinced. I know we're not doing it right, and I think we need to make some changes to our code to do that. One change I will propose, it says testing. All required compaction and materials test and inspection shall be performed by at the expense of the developer by a qualified registered engineer. I would like to add one other word in there, independent. That makes sure the whoever's doing the inspections has no interest in the city or the developer. They're just looking at the project and seeing that it's done right. And the things that are listed that the engineer is supposed to do in our thing, I think is pretty much adequate, except I don't think they're being done. And so we need to make sure that this gets done, and you can't get your final approval until that has been done, because our code says all the infrastructure requirements have to be done, completed, inspection, and approved by whoever before they can start building houses, before they can get building permits and start building houses. And I know of at least one example that didn't happen. Maybe there may be more, but that's at least one example that didn't happen. What the councilman have told me is we want y'all to do more up front to make sure that we get it done right. And that's all I'm saying, that we propose to do that.
Next week, is that our learning session?
Yes.
Okay, so next week, could we maybe even, for newcomers, they might not know exactly how to look at our ordinances and find this information.
Yeah.
I think with what Robbie is talking about, it would be great for all of the members that can come to see these ordinances in front
Yeah.
of them, to be able to read through them, and then if he wants to talk about changes, we can then have an open discussion and bring it back to our next meeting if that follows all the rules that are out there.
That's a great idea.
But I think that would be a good thing to do.
That's a great idea, especially for new members like John. John wants to know, but he just hasn't been on the committee long enough to be exposed to all that to learn.
I still wanna
we all
know.
were. Like we all do, and I'm still learning something every meeting I come to. Every time I read through this ordinance book, I find something new that I've either didn't know or have forgotten, which maybe that's the case, and I'm just forgetting it. But it is a good reminder to go through and read this. Like when we get a subdivision request, before I come to the meeting that week, I pull the subdivision section out and I go through it again. I may not read every word, but I go through and hit the high spots so I know things that we need to look for. And if you do that, I think you get better quality requests. This was a good quality request tonight. I like the way they approached it. I like the way they made some of the lots bigger than just what R3 requires. I like the answers to the questions they asked. I think they addressed the questions and the concerns I had, and I like seeing that because that tells me that's the developer that is trying to work with us to deliver a quality development for Clinton. But all developers are not equal. There's some great ones, and there's some good ones, and there's some that we would like to discourage. But we've been real lucky. The ones we've gotten so far have been pretty good, especially these last two things that we've looked at. I have been impressed with the quality of the request. And the one on Adair Street, I've got some more information about that. I actually had a chance to talk to the developer and talk to him about that, and some of the things they're doing I really like. So, like the front row of lots, they had that restriction, they could be R1, and we wanted that to be R2. Well, he's going to leave those front rows R1. I thought that was a great concession that he made, that exhibits to me that he's trying to work with us and trying to deliver a quality project. I like that. And that'll probably get my vote because of that. I like that, but that's what I like to see. And that's all I'm saying. But we can do this in our training session. We can devote a little bit of time to it and look at it. There are a few, I'm not saying revamp our whole code, but there's some things that we can put in there that'll catch some of these loose ends and make it a little easier for everybody.
We would also,
Yeah.
talking about the training session, we will have our design review board and board zoning appeals members in attendance as well
Okay.
for that meeting. So as of right now, I intend to go over just the whole process so
Yeah.
that all of the members of the boards can see what the procedure is from the beginning stage of a development all the way through one of our commercial buildings downtown.
Yeah.
And so we can see how that whole process works.
And that's good because that tells everybody how we all fit together.
That's correct.
Because we have certain responsibilities, design review has certain responsibilities, and zoning appeals has certain responsibilities. And if we all do our job, everything's going to get done the way they're supposed to do. But it helps us to know what they're doing, and it helps them to know what we're doing, so we can all work for the same end goals to have quality developments in our town, which I think we're doing.
I'm
I
not
hope we're
going to
doing.
be here Tuesday. I think I'll let you know that. Are you going to video it so I can watch it later? Or,
We'll figure that out and let you know.
okay.
I can FaceTime you while you're on the beach, John.
Oh, excuse me, I will be at a very important conference. It just happens to be at the beach.
Working on his tab. But anyway, yeah, I think that would be a good idea to do that. We can devote a little time to it. We don't have to do that on me, but we can devote a little time to it. And I like the way you're setting up our training. You're doing one training session that satisfies our requirement for the year. So we don't have to be trying to get on the internet and do this and do that, and which I don't like to do. I'm not that tech savvy, so I'm glad to have it simplified so we can all be here together and do it together. And I think it's good that we can all interact and ask questions and figure out what each group is doing. That's a good idea. Thank you for setting that up, Phil.
Sure.
That's good. Okay, that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything?
No,
Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
That looks bad.
Keeping my baby tonight.
Have you seen that?
Well, I know that they're gonna come back and repave everything once it's done. But that's awful.